tonight. We will now hear an overview of Proposition 36. Please welcome now Michele Hanisee, the Special Assistant with the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, who will walk us through the key elements and impacts of Proposition 36.
Thank you so much, and I want to especially thank D.A. Hoffman and Sheriff Luna for supporting policies that enhance public safety. To give you some background, I want to start back in 2014 when voters passed Proposition 47, which was called the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, if you remember. And it was supposed to save the state money by reducing the state prison population. The promise to voters at the time was that money would be transferred to the local communities for rehabilitation and drug treatment programs. The key features of Proposition 47 was that it was going to reduce certain drug possession crimes from felonies to misdemeanors, which it did. It changed the threshold amount for felony thefts from $400 to $950. It eliminated the felony crime of petty theft with a prior so that no matter how many times a person stole an amount under $950, it was always a misdemeanor. And it made drug possession for personal use a misdemeanor, never a felony. In December of 2016, 2 years after Prop 47 passed, the USA Today newspaper group did a multi-reporter feature focusing on the impacts 2 years later. And what they found was that the state saw only about half the savings that it had projected. And unfortunately, much of the remaining money was being diverted back into the state's general fund instead of going to the local communities to be used for the treatment and rehabilitation programs that had been promised to the communities. They also found that enrollment in drug treatment programs was at an all-time low, because without the threat of incarceration, no one would go to the drug treatment programs. The defendants would rather get sentenced to county jail because they knew that with the overcrowding situation in the jails, they'd get released in just a few days. The newspaper reporters also found that thieves were gaming the system. The thieves knew as long as they kept their thefts amount under $950 each time they stole, they could go from store to store to store and steal multiple times a day, every single day, and it would always be a misdemeanor. Really just barely a traffic ticket, and they would never get arrested. Violent crimes, meanwhile, were increasing statewide, and reported property crimes started going up. But then they started decreasing. Why? Why would property crimes start decreasing under these circumstances? And I want to note that I said reported property crimes, because there were also some unintended consequences of Proposition 47. And one of the huge consequences was the police powers to make arrests under these circumstances. Penal Code Section 836, as it was written at the time, only gives powers the police to arrest for a theft if the police actually witnessed the theft. That's the way the law was written as it existed at that time. So if the police got called to a store where a shoplifting had occurred, they couldn't make an arrest for a misdemeanor theft. They could only make an arrest if they could do so for a felony. Prior to Proposition 47, if it was for a petty theft with prior, for a crime they could charge as a burglary, or for an amount over the $400 threshold, they could make an arrest because it was a felony. But post Prop 47, none of those crimes existed anymore. It was just a misdemeanor, so they could not arrest a person. What happened was retailers would make the call, the police would show up, and the police would have to say, I'm sorry, I can't arrest this person. The best I can do is write them a citation, and that's if the person was still there, if they hadn't walked away from the retailer. It would be up to a security guard or a person working at Target or 7-Eleven or the mom and pop liquor store to try to hold a person until the police showed up, which was completely unrealistic. Unfortunately, there were times when security guards during this time period did try to detain people and got killed doing so. The big retailers advised all of their employees never to do this, and thieves started walking out of the stores with handfuls, cartloads of goods. We all saw the video of this in the news, right? And the retailers very quickly learned that calling the police was a useless exercise, that nothing was going to happen. And then the thieves quickly learned the same thing, that they could walk out of the store, they could fill their backpacks, they could fill the carts, and they could walk out of the stores, and there was not going to be a consequence. And that's what they learned, and that's when we saw the crimes went up and the thefts went up, but the reports went down. Property theft reports went down, but shrinkage went up for the retailers, and thefts went up for the private citizens, and there was no consequence because the police couldn't make arrests. Meanwhile, over the next 7 years, California's homeless rates skyrocketed. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development annual report to Congress for the next 7 years showed that for 6 out of the next 7 years, California led the nation for increases in the homeless population. These are the circumstances that put Proposition 36 on the ballot in 2024, with the intent to address some of the consequences, intended and unintended, caused by Proposition 47. So Proposition 36 had 2 key areas of focus. It has a theft provision and it has a drug sales and use provision. And it created 2 new crimes that could be charged as felonies, giving back to the police that power to make arrests for theft offenses and for drug offenses. And they both have several of the same key elements. First, they're crimes that can be charged as felonies, giving back the police that power to make an arrest and take people into custody, so that there's an immediate consequence when someone gets caught. Second, they require that the person have prior convictions, so they specifically target repeat offenders, not first-time offenders. And third, they both have treatment, diversion, and misdemeanor sentencing options so that they encourage and prioritize rehabilitation. So the first of those new crimes is Health and Safety Code Section 11395, and it's possession of hard drugs with 2 priors. So, as I said, it can be charged as a felony or misdemeanor, and because it can always be charged as a felony, the police have the powers of arrest. It's an arrestable offense. It always allows the defendant to make the choice, not the prosecutor, not the judge. It allows the defendant to make a choice between choosing a drug program over incarceration. So the defendant can opt into a drug program if they choose to do so. It only applies to possession of these hard drugs. So a person cannot be charged for this crime for possession, for example, of marijuana or hallucinogens. It's for the big drugs: fentanyl, heroin, cocaine base. The second new crime is Penal Code Section 666.1, petty theft with 2 prior theft convictions. So a person with 2 or more prior theft convictions can be arrested for a felony. It's a chargeable offense as a felony or a misdemeanor, an arrestable offense so the police can take them into custody when they encounter them having been caught stealing. And it also allows the DA to grant pretrial diversion and give them a program. So again, it prioritizes diversion and rehabilitation. For this offense, they have to have 2 or more adult convictions for a prior theft-related offense, and the District Attorney, D.A. Hockman, has instituted a policy that the priors have to have been committed within 5 years. They can't be more than 5 years old. Since the effective date of Prop 34, which was December 18th of 2024, the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office has charged 1,195 defendants with the new Health and Safety Code Section 11395 hard drug with 2 priors charge, and 1,913 defendants with the petty theft with 2 priors charge. So that's where we stand today, and 8 months in, we are just starting to be able to track outcomes, so we hope in the near future be able to provide more information on what kind of outcomes we're seeing from the defendants who were charged with these cases and those who were entering programs. Thank you very much.